Episode 12 of From the Shed End podcast with myself, T Dot, and as always, joined by Theo. So, first and foremost, how you doing, Theo?
Good, but very nervous for in 48 hours time. Really nervous.
Yeah, massive game, and not that we're going to talk about it too much, but if it's anything like the Europa League final, in terms of those penalties yesterday, last night, it was just, yeah, it was a bit much, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think being Chelsea fans, we were all backing Villarreal, and I think I was just nervous watching that penalty shootout. I can't imagine my nerves and how my heart's going to react should it go to a shootout on Saturday. So nervy
Yeah,
times.
yeah, and it was good to see that earlier on our Instagram we put on, or you put on, that who's the best goalkeeper out of the three. I did vote for Caballero. Um, I think he's, you go back to that cup final, the sort of Sarri Kepa moment, and you do think Caballero knows the City squad. He's good at penalties, I think, as well. Off the top of my head, obviously he doesn't play as many games as the other goalkeepers in the Premier League, but he's got a good stopping penalties conversion rate. So I think he's one that I would go for as well. But let's hope it doesn't go that far. Let's hope
Agree. Yeah.
at most I'll allow extra time. Um, but anything beyond that, I'm definitely behind the couch.
Yeah, I voted for Caballero too. Just remembering that shootout against Norwich, I think in the League Cup a few
Yeah,
years ago, he did really well. And as you mentioned, he knows all the City players. So I feel like could it go to a shootout, we could be getting a Tim Krul substitution, World Cup 2014 styled substitution. So I think it's something we could expect should it go to a shootout.
yeah. And before we get onto the Champions League, let's take it back to last Sunday, which was probably just as nerve wracking to watch as a Chelsea fan. Anyway, let's go back to Aston Villa, final Premier League of this game of the season as well. So just give us your thoughts around the game and what happened, and the fact that we did get the top four in the end. But just give us your initial thoughts on the game.
It was an all round really disappointing performance, if I'm honest. Going into that game, we couldn't rely at all on Tottenham to beat Leicester, just like we couldn't rely on Palace to beat Liverpool. And the 11 players starting that game should have had that mentality of we need to win this. It's a must win. It's a Champions League final. It's as important as a Champions League final, and they didn't have that mentality, and that's what disappoints me. I'm almost glad that we've got a week to the Champions League final because in between those two games, because I feel like there's a lot of work to be done on the training ground to prepare physically but also mentally for that game. And we had top four to play for, whereas Aston Villa had nothing to play for at all. They were win, lose, draw. They stayed in 11th, I think it was. They couldn't go up the table. They couldn't go down the table. Maybe they had the confidence and the drive and the motivation to play in front of their home fans after a year or so. So maybe that's what pushed them a bit more than us. But it was just a very disappointing performance. It just didn't seem like we were up for it. And what's kind of worried me about this Chelsea side in recent weeks is since that home leg against Real Madrid, all our goal scorers have come, they've been Jorginho from the penalty spot. They've been, Alonso or Chilwell, who are defenders, Rudiger, who's a defender. I think Ziyech at the Etihad, who's come off the bench. So, the likes of Werner, Mount, even Pulisic, they aren't really kind of providing with the goals or, that we'd hoped them for. I mean, Pulisic redeemed himself slightly of that wonderful assist for Chilwell against Villa, but it's kind of worrying. You need those front three to turn up in big games, and that's why I'm very more nervous, for the Champions League final now than I was a couple of weeks ago. So, very disappointing performance for Villa Park on Sunday.
Yeah, and I echo a lot of that. I think we were, going into that game, and from the last episode that we did as well, I was very optimistic, and if I top of the head, I think I said 3-0. I think I said 3-0 as a prediction, but it was just, I don't know whether it was nerves. I don't know whether it was the fact that we knew that we had to win that game. I mean, it was just a weird game. It didn't seem like we'd gotten over the sort of the Leicester. I still think there was that sort of hangover feeling around cup final. Obviously, then playing that game on the Tuesday against Leicester as well, it just seemed like there was. I don't want to say fatigue. I think that's such a weak and feeble excuse to use because they're professional footballers. But it just didn't seem like we were in that game at all. It was just poor. Like you said, it was a poor performance. There were moments where I thought, we could win. I thought Mason Mount had, just off the top of my head now, it feels like it's been a lifetime ago since I watched the game, but I'm sure he had a good chance in the first half. He definitely had one in the second, but I think it was on his left foot.
Yeah, he had that big chance in the first half where you expect him to score.
Yeah. And I think, those are the sort of moments where you mentioned, not to pick out Mason Mount because he's been exceptional this season, but we do need the likes of Werner and Havertz and even Pulisic to step up at that plate. I think Jorginho is the top goal scorer for Chelsea, which tells you a lot. It tells you that we do need the attacking players to do more, or even just to, like you said, to assist. I think Ben Chilwell had a second chance as well, very similar to the goal, to make it 2-2. But I want to talk about the goal, the first Aston Villa goal, which I thought was a brilliant goal. To credit to them because it was definitely off the training ground. And I remember mentioning on the last episode around Bertrand Traore, it was just made for him, wasn't it, to score against us? But just on that first goal, I mean, it was just so easy for them to score.
Yeah, we made it very simple for them. We've watched a couple of, a few of the Villa games this season, and Bertrand Traore, I think he scored against a lot of the big teams. I think Old Trafford, home and away. Against United, home and away. And, it's almost like that goal was always going to come, ex-Chelsea player. We've always got, our ex-player scoring against us in the last couple of seasons. I like that he didn't celebrate, credit to him. But yeah, it's just like we just switch off in these moments, and it was a great strike. But, that moment when that ball, I didn't really want to watch the replays because I felt so sick inside thinking, it could all, go downhill from here, which it looked like it was at half time. And beginning of the second half, but yeah, great goal, and we switch off, and we just didn't get in front of him in time to block that shot.
And leading up to the second goal, so that the penalty, I think it was Jorginho, wasn't it, that gave the penalty away. I mean, I at the time I did think, what else is Jorginho supposed to do at that point? But then in hindsight, you've got to look back. I mean, it's a penalty. It is a penalty in my eyes. It's harsh, but I think it was a penalty in today's football. It's a penalty for me anyway. I don't know about what you think.
It was soft, but it was a penalty. I agree. Yeah. When you look at all the decisions that the referees, they've stayed kind of relatively consistent with what they've given as a penalty and not a penalty this season. I feel referees, but soft kind of fouls like that have been given as penalties. And then even that Mings handball, they've stayed consistent with that, not giving a penalty.
Yeah, definitely.
So at least these referees are staying consistent with their decisions.
Yeah, it was one of those weird ones where he couldn't really. He was committed into the tackle. What do you expect him to you can't pull out of it, so he's already doing it. So I understand why it was given, but for me it was very soft. It was such a poor penalty, well taken penalty, obviously, but shouldn't have been a penalty for me. It was a weak one. But the Chilwell goal, like you said, Pulisic, I think we were unlucky because we definitely. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head how many shots on target we had. Because it was a weird game. It felt like we had seven shots on target, 23 shots in total, 7 of them on target, and 72% possession. So it felt like a game where we did everything right. We just didn't score on the day. It didn't help as well that whilst we were watching the game, we obviously know that Tottenham are playing, and obviously the Leicester game as well. We also know that Liverpool are playing Crystal Palace, and I mean I had sort of multi-screens on. I had obviously trying to watch all the games, but it was just knowing that we had to win that game. And I don't know about you, but I know when we sort of dropped out the top four at one point, I'm trying to think, it must have been when Leicester were winning. I think Vardy had scored, hadn't he? So what was going through your mind at that point?
I think I messaged you. I actually felt physically sick. I felt physically sick just seeing us, in that fifth spot, and Liverpool and Leicester ahead of us. And then I think at the same period, Kepa was coming on for Mendy. And I was in the back of my head, I was thinking, Mendy not fit for the Champions League final. We're in fifth space now. Like, what's happening? So it's moments like that where football just makes you feel sick. But yeah, luckily Spurs got the result and managed to help us with Gareth Bale.
Yeah,
but it's very bittersweet in a way, because it's you kind of want to qualify, in a clean way, and you want to get, a week before a Champions League final, you want to get that comfortable win. I feel, against a mid-table team. So yeah, it's very bittersweet.
Yeah, it was hard to watch. I'll admit, there was moments where I just thought I was resigned to the fact we were playing Europa League football, and I was ready for sort of the banter and the backlash and all of that. I was sort of preparing myself for it, but it was, it turned out all right for us, and I'm sure Leicester, when they look back, they'll realise that they've won an FA Cup as well this season. It's great to get in the Champions League. Realistically, how far would they have gone in the Champions League this season as well, next season as well? So, in 10 years from now, they'll see that they've won an FA Cup, but they missed out. No one's going to remember that they missed out on top four. No. So I think we congratulated them a few weeks ago on here, and I'm sure all Leicester fans, if they're being honest, would prefer to have the FA Cup over a top four spot anyway.
I agree. I think they've been in the Champions League back in 2016-17. I think they struggled a bit in the Europa League this season. I think they got knocked out to Slavia Prague.
Yeah.
So I think, the real test for them would be getting, further into the knockout stages in the Europa League before, I think thinking, okay, we've had our journey now in Europa. Now it's time to challenge for the Champions League. But credit to them. I think they were the team that stayed the longest amongst the top four all season, even ahead of City, United. So it almost feels they must be a bit disgusted to have dropped out, on the final day. But I'd agree. I think they kind of cherish an FA Cup triumph over a top four spot.
Yeah, definitely. And I know it's been rescinded, but we need to talk about this epsiode challenge, which I did watch again today, and I'm on the fence. I'm a bit on the fence. Because he does lash out. He lashes out at Jack Grealish. But before that, prior to that, which not many people have spoken about as well, there seems to be Jack kind of steps on Cesar Azpilicueta's leg a little bit, which would warrant the arm reaching out slightly. But obviously, I'm glad it's been rescinded because it was a bit soft as well. But I can see why it would have been a red, because he's raised his arm. But what was your initial thoughts during the game, and then obviously now that we know that it's been rescinded?
First time I saw it, I thought that Azpi, messed up. I thought it was very unorthodox from Azpi as well, being our captain, being, kind of relatively clean player. And, he's a bit of he should be setting the example on the pitch, having that captain's armband. And I thought, that's very foolish of him. I thought maybe a bit disappointed of Tuchel as well, because he knows the Spurs result probably on the touchline. So he should maybe communicate it with Azpi, being like, calm down, no point to lose your temper. We're guaranteed top four now. But maybe there was a bit of lack of communication. And also, so we were really disappointed at the time. But then when I watched a replay on Match of the Day the next day, I did kind of feel like it was relatively soft. It was just a bit of a flick of the hand. And then it didn't really touch his face. It was more, his chin or maybe his neck. And to be fair, I thought Grealish was very lucky to be on the pitch in the first place. Like, in that first half, the amount of fouls that he committed that were worthy of a yellow.
Yeah.
And, every time the ref would play on, because Chelsea would manage to, gather the ball and, have counter-attack. But he was a very lucky late challenge.
He didn't bring it back, did he? Even though we got the advantage, he never brought it back at all.
There were 3 fouls in that first half that were worthy of a yellow. And then I think seconds after Grealish committed one of those fouls, I think Werner did a silly one and got booked straight away. So it's, typical striker's foul, not really knowing how to go into the, into the challenge. And I thought they were 3 challenges worthy of a yellow. And you do wonder whether he would have committed that foul had he already been booked. Yeah. So I think he was lucky to be on the pitch. But yeah, no excuses for Azpi, really.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good that it's been, from our perspective, it's been rescinded. I'm sure he'll be a vital part of the start of the season as well for us. So we need to have him there, whatever the team is that we go with for the first 3 games of the season. But overall, I think we've got to look at the way that we had the season, the first half. I look at the season in 2 halves, obviously before, under the Frank Lampard part of the season, and then we've got to look at the Tuchel part separately. But I think overall, we've said it before on here, had someone said to us, we'd get top four, we'd be in the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. No one would have, in December, no one would have thought that at all. So to still have that as the achievement at the end of the season, we have to look at it as a positive season. It's not the best season. I wouldn't say it's a successful season at all, but we've got to look at the positives from it as well.
I'd agree. January, I feel like this was, almost like a far-fetched vision that no Chelsea fan would have expected, or no football fan, to say the truth. But yeah, I think a lot of like lessons to be learnt as well, particularly around that number 9 position, going into the summer transfer market. And also, I think we're only going to get better from now. Tuchel will have his pre-season. He'll know his first 11. He'll know which players he wants to bring in, maybe which players he wants to get rid of. And I'm expecting, much better things domestically, at least in next season from Chelsea, and also from the players that we signed last summer, who are still kind of, on a mission to prove themselves, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm just reading off our Twitter, because I think we've had some. Neil Roberts has said, based on he said that we had loads of players playing there that they were playing for their international places that were on the fringe. Obviously, none of the Euro squads were selected at that point as well. So we should have won the game, missed a lot of chances. He's put, hopefully we can turn up and give Man City a game on Saturday, which I'm sure every Chelsea fan echoes that as well. It's a fair point. A lot of those Euro squads, I think, were released possibly afterwards, weren't they, over the last couple of days? So yes, of course, Havertz, Werner were going to probably make the Euro squads. There was no real doubt around that. Mason Mount for England as well. But you still want to put on I think it's even beyond international football. You just, you want to play for the club that you represent more so as well. And like you mentioned earlier, what's at stake is top 4 Champions League football.
Yeah, agree. A lot of those players probably knew as well, maybe that they were already selected for international teams, the ones you mentioned. But I think some other ones, the likes maybe the Zuma, the Giroud, not guaranteed. Maybe Christensen as well. So they had a point to prove. I don't think they played a part on Sunday, but yeah, maybe, but yeah, definitely, international football in the back of the players' heads, and I don't want to kind of use that word fatigue or tiredness, but I think that may have played a bit of a part physically and mentally as well.
And it'll be interesting to see, obviously, whether a lot of those players were thinking, they don't want to get injured for the Champions League final as well. They don't want to be. I mean, that's a big final. It's an all-English final, and how often we haven't been in it for a few years now. So I'm sure a lot of these players will want to be in that Champions League final. They don't want to be injured. So that we could sit here all night and make up reasons as to why we didn't beat Aston Villa. But as I say, we've got to look at it from the point of view that although we didn't beat them, we're in the top 4. We're in Champions League next season, and we just have to, at this point now, just draw a line under this league and hope that we have a brilliant pre-season. Obviously, the players come back from the Euros, and there's no injuries that are long term going into next season as well. But we've got to look at it now that we draw this a close to this, and then we go again next season. But I wanted to mention before we move on to the Champions League around Giroud and obviously Tammy Abraham, who we've mentioned on here many a times before. And I'm just trying to think. I don't remember. Just trying to think now. I don't think either of them came. Well, Giroud definitely didn't come on, did he? I don't think.
Not sure he did. No, I think he came on against.
No, he didn't. It was the Leicester game.
Yeah.
So he didn't come on, and I don't think Tammy was even in the squad, was he?
We made the Kepa substitution, so I think that probably was our first one, and then I think we brought Havertz and was it Ziyech on? I think.
Yeah. So ideally, I'd love to keep Olivier Giroud. I think he's we've spoke about him before, but if that was his last game, ideally, I'd love to have just seen him get 10, 15 minutes. I know obviously there was no Chelsea fans there, but just to give him that sort of, that last send off, it would have been ideal.
I mean, he came on for the last 5-10 minutes at Stamford Bridge against Leicester midweek.
He did, he did.
And I think he had that lap of honour at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to keep him for another season. I think his family's settled, around Battersea in London.
Yeah.
I've seen him a few times in Battersea Park, and I know that he loves London life, and type of player, you can count on him and rely on him for these big games. And he's hungry for goals as well. He's 34, 35, I think,
Yeah.
but he wants to score more. He's still desperate to be called up to the national team, and he knows the Premier League well. And if you're going to go in for a player like Lukaku, Lewandowski, Kane, I don't know who, maybe it might reduce Giroud's minutes, but you just know you can count on him should there be an injury, should there be some kind of problem. And if I'm completely honest, if Werner, Havertz, those type of players were injured for Saturday, which I know Tuchel relies on the most, I'd love to. Be happy to see Giroud start and have be full of confidence that he'd put in a good performance over someone maybe more like Tammy Abraham, who seems a bit still learning and still not likely to create a goal out of nothing. Let's put it like that.
I think it's a good shout. I think putting Tammy in, which I don't think we're going to need to do this, but if we had to put Tammy into a Champions League final, I think I'd have to get the brandy out because it'd be a long night, I think. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Giroud gives you that sense of being able to trust him as a striker. He may not get as many chances as the others, but when he gets them, he takes them a lot better. I think we can say that for sure. So yeah, I'd love to keep him, and it'll be interesting, obviously, over the summer whether we do that. I think we'll talk about transfers slightly later, but I do think he does want to play a bit more football than he's been playing.
I think he's off. Yeah, I think he's off. I saw today. I think Roma, AC Milan, Lazio are the clubs linked to him.
Roma's last
thing for Giroud is just against Villa, the amount of crosses we were putting in the box and just no one was there. It was just the type of game that was screaming for Olivier Giroud to just have a bullet header or even a diving header to just put it in the back of the net. And you've got players like Reece James, Aspi, even Chilwell who can put in a really good cross. And Werner's not the tallest of players, and he's not even when he does get a head on it, he doesn't manage to generate a lot of power. So it's the type of thing that maybe Tuchel should consider for Saturday.
Yeah, and hopefully, there's still the option of having Giroud on the bench or bringing him on if we need to. So it'd be interesting. But let's move over to Saturday, 8:00. Although I'll be watching from 6:00. I think the coverage starts from then. I'm going to sit down and get myself ready. But let's talk about the Champions League final, all English final, Manchester City. How nervous will you be?
I've literally just booked out my whole Saturday just to prepare mentally for it. And even from now, I'm just still, it's always in the back of my mind. I'm almost enjoying this moment where I can still say we're in a Champions League final. Because for Sunday morning we might just be that team that came second, but what I do like in a way is no one expected us to be in a Champions League final, as we mentioned, and we should remember that no matter what happens, Mount, Reece James, Abraham, if he plays a part, even Werner and Havertz, they're 21, 24 max. They're young players. They're only going to get better. They're still learning. When we played Bayern Munich last season in the Champions League knockout stage, we saw that difference in quality, especially in that second leg when I think we lost 4-1 at the Allianz Arena.
Yeah.
I kind of came out of that game thinking, this is a learning lesson. These players, will get better, they'll learn, which we have this season. We've knocked out Atletico Madrid, Porto.
Big teams.
And then Real Madrid in the semis. But it's whether they have that, they're mentally prepared to take on, arguably the best team in Europe, let's face it, Manchester City, in a Champions League final. I don't know. And it's really going to be a test of, mentality, I reckon. And anything can happen in a Champions League final, no matter form. It's 90 minutes. We've beat them twice recently in the last month or two, which maybe will play a part, subconsciously. But at the same time, it's type of game, a fluke could happen. We could win 3-0. We could be, 3-0 down at half time, like we that game at Stamford Bridge early in the season. So I'm definitely nervous, definitely nervous. But at the same time, I like the fact maybe we're the underdogs. I hope Chelsea fans know that we're the underdogs, and they should remember.
I should hope so.
Yeah. 2012 style.
Yeah. Well, it was strange because I was reading up about when I was looking at the squads when we played Bayern Munich in 2012, and we're forgetting that we lost. Obviously, John Terry wasn't playing. I think it was Basingwa that was on right back. Obviously, we had Ashley Cole, left back, Cahill, and David Luiz were centre backs. John Obi Mikel, Lampard in the middle. Solomon Kalou, I think, was on the right, with Bertrand on the left, Mata and Drogba. up front. And I also forgot, Drogba gave away a penalty, didn't he, against Robin, when he missed as well. Robin missed
We
the
forget
penalty.
that. We
Yeah,
forget that.
yeah. So I mean, we were so and we got battered in that. We really got hammered in that game. In terms of possession, I think we had less than 40%. We had 3 shots, I think, on target that game. It could just be that again. You know, we know City are going to be relentless on Saturday. We know that already. We know how they play, which I think is a good thing. We're not playing a team that we don't play, or we don't get to. You know, they're not. You know, they're in the Premier League, so we see them quite often. I'm sure Tuchel's studied them even more so. You know, throughout this season, he would have kept an eye on them as soon as he took the job on. I'm sure. Even before then, you know, I'm sure he's been keeping an eye on them as well. So. Anything can happen. You know, we've got experience. Obviously, we lost in 2008, was it, against United as well. So we've got experience of what it feels like to lose the Champions League final. We've also won the Champions League final. City can't say that, which I think is, you know, something we can use to our advantage mentally. I think, you know, we can. Okay, they're different players. You know, these aren't the players that were there in. I don't think there's anyone left, obviously, from 2012 squad. But
Petr Cech.
yeah, I mean, you know, they can use that as an advantage to say that, you know, we've been there already. We know what it's like. City can't do that, and it's strange because even in the final, you could have the best players and they could crumble under the pressure of the final. So it's great that they've got Kevin De Bruyne. It's great that they've got Ruben Diaz and Ederson in goal, but you know, they could crumble.
We saw it in the Europa League last night. You know, arguably United were the better team on paper. You know, Cavani, Rashford, Fernandes, Greenwood, quality players, and you know they weren't clinical enough. They didn't take their chances, and you know they ended up taking it to penalties and losing. So anything can happen in a Champions League final, and as you mentioned, it's uncharted territory for Manchester City. I wrote about it in my recent Champions League article for the magazine, Champions Journal magazine. And I thought, even though a lot of those players didn't play a part, I think, it's kind of engraved in the DNA of the club, Chelsea, that we've made it to a Champions League final. We've won it before. They probably got pictures of, the players celebrating all around the dressing room and the training ground. And I think, when you sign for Chelsea, that's the objective, to win the Champions League. Whereas City, it's always, kind of been that, trophy that they dream of having, and Guardiola dreamed of having with Manchester City. But at the same time, they've it's their first ever final. We've been in a final which we've lost, and then we've been in a final and which we've won. Whereas City have never even participated in the European final. So definitely, it's uncharted territory for them.
And I think even obviously they've got better over the years have gone on, but I remember, I don't think it's under Pep, so forgive me, it might have been under maybe Pellegrini. They were awful in the Champions League. They were really awful. They've got better, and they've got a better manager in Pep under them. But I just think we've got just as good as a chance to do that and beat them, and we are the underdogs. Looking at the squad that we went in with 2012, I'd argue that we've got a better squad now. Obviously Drogba, if he's available and he wants to play up front for us on Saturday, then great. But we've got a better squad. You think about the back, Thiago Silva, and the midfield in Kante as well. So we've got a squad that can match City. We're not. It's not that. I don't want to disrespect Man United, but we're not Man United. We're not Arsenal. We've got a really good squad there that we can be happy with, we can be proud of. That does need a bit of work. It does need a bit of tweaking in terms of getting a Werner to maybe be a bit more attacking or take his chances better. But the squad in itself is amazing. We've got just as good as a squad as City in some aspects as well, and depth. We've got a lot of squad depth now as well. Our bench isn't rubbish. We've got a good bench. We mentioned Tammy, Abraham, and obviously Olivier Giroud. But we've got. Well, I'll ask you now. Who would you start? Who would you start in the final?
Personally, who I would start, seeing how that game against Villa went and the chances we missed and the crosses not put into the box, I would start Olivier Giroud. I'm a huge fan of Olivier Giroud's, but knowing Tuchel, he'll stick with maybe Werner, and I think bring Havertz on around the 60th, 70th minute mark. But just going back to what you said about we've got a better squad than 2012. We've also got no disrespect to Di Matteo, but a better manager,
Yeah,
a manager
yeah,
who's more, he knows football, better. I feel, he's been, he's managed Dortmund and he got them, really did really well with them domestically in Germany, and then he took PSG to a Champions League final last season. So he wanted to go that step further this year, having come so close last season, in Lisbon, same country this season, Porto, but in Porto,
yeah,
he want to, definitely want to be lifting that trophy. And I think, he knows his football. You can tell he knows his football. He seems to. I was watching his interview the other day, and he said, that his kids apparently didn't even know that cartoons existed on TV because they just thought, they just watch football on TV, and these are his kids. So he must be like a football mad household, and I think he going into a Champions League final with Tuchel as your manager gives you that just a bit more confidence. I know we're facing Guardiola, who's a serial winner, but I'm happy that we've got Tuchel, and as you mentioned, all that depth in our squad will only do us some positives as well.
He's got flaws though, Pep. He does have some times where, very similar to what I felt Tuchel done in our FA Cup final. Pep loves to overcomplicate things in times when he doesn't need to do it, and he's done it in the past as well. Away from Man City, I remember his time at Barca, he used to do crazy thing. He'd play like a centre mid at right back or something stupid, a holding midfielder would be playing in left back or something. So he does overcomplicate things, and I wouldn't be surprised if it'd be interesting how Man City line up. I mean, I can kind of probably name the squad that I think he'll go with, but just I wanted to ask you around, because obviously Kante and Jorginho have been playing in the middle. Kovacic kind of coming back into form. I think he got probably over an hour, didn't he, against Aston Villa? So would you start with Kovacic, or would you leave him on the bench? And because I think he'd be a better fit in the final myself. I think
I've been having almost arguments in my own head thinking about, which two midfielders to start, because you got Kante, who got injured against Leicester last week, and I think he came back into training on Wednesday, so yesterday. But at the same time, he's N'Golo Kante.
We need
him. We need him. We saw him in Baku against Arsenal. He was playing with one leg, and he pocketed the whole team. So he'll be definitely one of those midfielders. He's got to be the first name on the team sheet. And the second one, it's a difficult one, because you've got Kovacic, who's only just come back from injury, and there's 2 games he has played. He got dispossessed, I think, quite easily for 2 chances. I think one was for...
Was it McGinn? I think one of them was McGinn, wasn't it?
McGinn against Villa, and I think it was Iheanacho, which led to the goal against Leicester.
Yeah.
So, but he's still a quality player. He's a really quality player. We saw how good he's been in in those first couple of Champions League games in the groups, and I think against the ones he played against Atletico. So, but at the same time, Jorginho gets a lot of stick, a scapegoat at time. He's made a few mistakes, giving away that penalty and also the blunder against Arsenal. But whichever one starts between the two, I'm happy. I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose, maybe just for that kind of maybe just being a bit more attacking, potentially Kovacic.
I'd love to see that, but my worry is he fully fit? Is he someone that can last the game? And also, I'm assuming if it does go through to extra time and penalties, Jorginho is going to be taking, if not the first, maybe the second penalty. So, yeah, I think it's neither here nor there. I think we need to, obviously we need to start with the best 11, and if he's not fully fit, personally I'd probably put him on the bench, have Jorginho. But then sometimes Jorginho does worry me, because he is quite, he means well, but he does like to get stuck in with a couple of the challenges, and if he gets an early yellow card, then we can't really afford to to be playing a Champions League final with 10 men. It's just not going to work. And if we do go down to 10 men, we may as well just hand the trophy over, because it will be tough to keep City at bay with 10 men.
No. 10 men against Man City, there'll be no 2012 miracles, I feel. But Jorginho on a yellow is a bit of a scary thought.
Yeah, and he's done it. I think he's calmed it down slightly, but I know I think especially last season, he was, you could almost put money on him to get a yellow card, because he he's in that position where he's going to commit a lot of fouls. He's trying to win the ball back, so it's expected of him. But he's just in a final. We've got to be a bit more cautious with that, for me. Mendy came off on Sunday against Aston Villa, and I haven't had a chance to sort of catch up on any press conferences this week. So I'm assuming he's fit now. He's back in.
He was back in training
Yeah.
yesterday alongside Kante. So
Kante as well.
it's good news. A huge boost for us because I think he is that keeper you want between the sticks. Maybe less so for penalties, but for 90 minutes or 120 minutes.
The Aguero penalty was. I know it was a fluke, but yeah.
I'm just thinking back at that Mendy shootout against Tottenham in the League Cup. He didn't save one, whereas Kepa and Caballero have they've been quite good from saving penalties. And that Kepa penalty I think he saved against Valencia in the Champions League last season. And I've watched it a few times. It's an amazing stop.
Save. Yeah,
because it's above him, and he just sticks up that high, that kind of arm that's above him, and a really good save. And even that stop with his knee against Frankfurt. That power, you just expect it to slide underneath your body. But yeah, I think if I had to rank my penalty goalkeepers, it'd be, from what I've seen at least, it would be Caballero, Kepa, then Mendy. But I trust Hugo to make the right decision.
Yeah, I agree. Just talking about it, even mentioning penalties is worrying me already. He's making me a bit on edge. But I'm optimistic. I think we can. You can only beat the team that's in front of you, and City are an amazing team, and we know that. Everyone knows that. Pep's a brilliant manager, but they have got flaws in that team, and if we can keep Kevin De Bruyne quiet, if we can expose, I'm assuming he's probably going to play John Stones at centre back with Ruben Diaz. If we can cause Stones to make errors, which he's known to doing at times as well, I don't see why we can't win this final. I really don't. It wouldn't surprise me if Timo Werner turns up and actually plays a blinder of a game. I really wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me because he just, he does. And I think he scored quite a few goals anyway, hasn't he? And the sort of European, I'm trying to think how many he's got, but he's got a few, I think.
He got 2 against Rennes, 1 against Krasnodar from the penalty spots, and then he got that tap-in against Real.
Easy
so
one.
I think.
So he's got a fair few in the Champions League. So he seems to like the Champions League more than he likes the Premier League. So if I have to do predictions, which I'm sure we'll have to, I don't think it will go through to penalties. I don't. I'm going to give 2. I'm going to give 2 predictions. I'm going to give 1-1. I think it'd be very cagey, so I'm going to go for 1-1. Or I'm going to go for 1-0 Chelsea.
I'd be happy with that 1-0, but I literally just got up before doing this recording. I got a notification, play predictors open on the 5th stand out, and I've left it blank for now. But just the way things have gone this season, it's almost like the pattern is just so similar to 2012. I wrote an article in the Champions League Journal, about the similarities.
Yeah.
So just, I'm quite superstitious as well. So I'm going to say 1-1 extra time, and then Chelsea to win on penalties.
It's a good shout.
It's going to be a scary thought, but
like I said,
I hope I'm wrong.
I'll get the brandy ready just in case.
I'll be joining you.
Just thinking about Man City's penalty takers as well. I'm just trying to think. I just don't know if they've got many decent penalty takers.
They've got a bad record. I think Aguero and Jesus have missed a fair few, I think, in the league. And
does Kevin De Bruyne? I'm sure he takes penalties every now and again, doesn't he?
Probably Sterling and Mahrez can take them, but
Sterling under the pressure though, I think he would probably miss.
Maybe,
I think he'd miss.
All this talk about penalty goalkeepers, penalty takers, for me it just seems inevitable that it's going to be a shootout now.
Yeah, and let's just hope it doesn't end up being Mendy or Caballero having to take one, because after last night, to be honest, David De Gea wasn't really. He was never going to score that. I don't know whether it was just nerves or I think at one point he was fixing his goalkeeper gloves as he was going to take it. You don't need to use your hands to kick the ball.
He hadn't saved one since 2016. Probably Ole, you're probably thinking, are you bringing Henderson on, who's I think saved 5 or 6 recently? Yeah. But I think really smashed the Villarreal goalkeeper, smashed his in the roof of the
top
net.
Corner. Yeah.
And I remember Courtois taking a couple in pre-season. I think pre-season 2015, I think, against PSG, and he was just smashing them in the roof of the net as well.
And I think sometimes you've got to do that. You've got to just bank on the fact that you've got enough power in the shot that it's just going to go in.
Because these goalkeepers, the way they train, I think they've got a net in front of them, when they take their goal kicks, and they just smash it into a net, constantly. And, probably what they do for these penalties, they just know the trajectory of the ball, and they know that it can get some height and in the roof of the net. Yeah. So, So yeah, but just as long as Caballero, Mendy, or Kepa, whichever one it is, can do that, then
It's not going to come to that.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So you're going to go for 1-1 extra time penalties, Chelsea.
Yeah, you've got to go. You've got to back your team. You've got to back your team.
I'm more inclined to say 1-0 Chelsea. I think if we get a goal, we're very good defensively. We like clean sheets. Yes, it's Man City, but I think we can do it. So I'm more leaning towards 1-0 rather than 1-1. But yeah, we'll see. Saturday, 8:00. You may not see me or hear from me on Sunday. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. And yeah, whoever wins, I'm sure, it'd be a proud moment for obviously English football, to have two English teams from the Premier League in the Champions League final. But yeah, hopefully it's us. We can play the Super Cup as well, which is brilliant. I love that tournament. Well, say tournament, that final.
Need to win it because I think we've lost the last 2 or 3, haven't we?
Yeah, we don't normally do well. We played Liverpool, didn't we?
We lost to Liverpool on penalties, then we lost to Bayern on penalties, and Atletico and in Monaco, I think.
Penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully it doesn't go that far, and if we do win, I'm sure we'll. But let's move over to a topic that I know you wanted to cover as well. There's craziness going on in Italy, Serie A at the moment, with managers swapping different clubs, and the availability of Lukaku. We've got Lewandowski, which I think we've been linked with as well. Haaland, Harry Kane may stay now if Pochettino comes back. Don't know. But if he doesn't, then he's an option. I feel like I'm missing someone. Donnarumma,
possibly Eden Hazard now.
And he's in that. There we go. That was the main one. So out of those players who are currently linked with us, who or if any would you take? And for me, more so, especially for Eden Hazard, who I think is an amazing player, but what would be the reasons for wanting them? I mean, the goalkeeper one's probably easy, but in terms of start with Eden Hazard, actually, because that's probably a good one to start with.
I mean, firstly, I think I'm going to try to, play devil's advocate and understand why things haven't worked at Real Madrid. I remember reading an article about, their fitness, routine and, their gym routine, as well as the kind of their physios, and apparently it's quite intense. So that may lead to a lot of his injuries. And I know that at Chelsea, he was never the fittest in terms of the gym. So, if he's put through like a really tedious gym routine, week in, week out, that may lead to injuries. So I don't think Real Madrid have necessarily looked after him really well. And the other thing is he's never really kind of, the fans have never really kind of opened up to him. You just saw, after that game at Stamford Bridge, all the comments on his Instagram, how kind of, disgusted they were with him. And, that affects your performance on the pitch. Whereas if you got, the backing of your fans, you want to give 110%. So, and also now with Zidane leaving, Zidane was a huge reason why he wanted to join Real Madrid. And it was confirmed today that Zidane's leaving, he's stepping down. Yeah. So, he might think now, listen, there's going to be a new manager that I'm going to have to play for. The fans don't like me. I'm struggling with this fitness routine. I want out. I've tried 2 seasons now. He may think that, or on the contrary, he might think, I've not proven my worth here. I haven't proved why I'm, they paid 120. I don't know how much it was, 100 million.
Yeah.
I want to stay another season and show that, what Eden Hazard is capable of. And, similarly to, I think, 2016, when he had that really poor season, when we finished 10th in the league, same summer, he just, he played his best possible football at the Euros. So I think there's a possibility we see, the real Eden Hazard again with his Belgian teammates at the Euros this summer. But I personally would take him back. I would. He's 30. I think you're going to get another 2 good years out of Eden Hazard, maybe 3 or 4. He's still a quality player. And I think, just that emotional connection we have with Hazard. And if you're able to get him for, I think the price I saw was 46 million, I think.
Yeah. It's a bargain. It is a bargain.
It's a bargain. If it's a bargain when Eden Hazard, I remember, was the one who was just dribbling, past Coquelin and Alberto Moreno, So I'd take him back for that price, which is a bit harsh on whichever player maybe has to kind of,
That was going to be my question to you next. Like who, because obviously we've got, like I mentioned before, we've got some brilliant talent, young talent as well. 20s, 21s, 23, 24, 5-year-olds, and Eden Hazard brings that experience. He knows the Chelsea way of doing things as well. My only worry is the injuries that he has picked up. And he wasn't injury prone when he was at Chelsea, but he did have the odd injury when he was at Chelsea already. When we get him, or when we've had him, what he can do. We know what he's capable of doing. But my only worry is he at that stage where he's going to be having reoccurring injuries, and we're spending a lot of time maybe pushing someone out who is currently being developed under Tuchel out, into the cold, or they're going shipped off on loan just to make way for Eden Hazard, who may actually be something we don't really need.
It's not a priority, the winger position, if I'm honest, but it's just the fact that Eden Hazard, who had I think it was 8 or 7 amazing years at Chelsea, and he made Stamford Bridge his home, and he even said after that game in Baku, I'm going to return one day to Stamford Bridge when I finished my duties in Madrid. But the one player that I think could potentially leave should Eden Hazard arrive is possibly Callum Hudson-Odoi out on loan. There's been talks of Dortmund wanting Hudson-Odoi and Abraham, and if it's Dortmund taking Hudson-Odoi on loan, I'd be happy to see that, because Dortmund have a reputation of developing really good young English talent. Bellingham, Sancho, and then other players in the Bundesliga. I think Smith Rowe, and I think maybe was it Nketiah? I think maybe went to the Bundesliga.
I think they've signed someone from Reading today as well.
But they've been brilliant, and it's like you see a lot of English players sometimes attempt to go to the Spanish league or the Italian league and struggle. But the Bundesliga is that one where they can really excel. So, and if it means just learning him, and then you've got a really good Hudson-Odoi coming back full of confidence, and then challenging the likes of Pulisic, and possibly even Werner, whichever wingers we have. Then I think that could be a scary thought, because I think Hudson-Odoi still hasn't lived up to his full potential, but his full potential is very, very scary.
Yeah, and I wouldn't argue that the toss of I think I've seen 40 million for Hazard. When you think how much Madrid have paid for him, and they are desperate for money, very similar to Inter Milan, which one of the reasons why Antonio Conte decided to leave Inter Milan was because they need to reduce the wage bill. I think I read they want to try and recoup 80 million or so in sales over the summer. So that was something Conte didn't want to do. He wanted to retain the squad and build on the squad. So Lukaku, I think, I've heard 75 million, 75 to 70 million for Lukaku, which I think is, off the back of the seasons that he's had at Inter Milan, is another bargain. My question is, and we've spoke about Haaland on here, and obviously Harry Kane, is he the better suited striker for us? We've had him before. He knows the Premier League. Obviously Harry Kane does as well, but in terms of Haaland, is he the price? Is he the better suited striker for us?
I think maybe not the better suited, considering maybe the age of Haaland and the potential of Haaland, but the most realistic option is definitely Lukaku. And just that video, I think when he was I think 12 or 13, and he did that stadium tour of Stamford Bridge. It was a known fact that he was a boyhood Chelsea fan. His idol was Drogba. He had the posters in his room. So I think it's almost like the story, the fairy tale story for him to come back to Chelsea and be a top goal scorer. And as you said, he knows the Premier League well. He had really successful loans at West Brom and Everton. Then he went on to join Everton, and then United. I always thought he was unfairly treated there. Good striker, but would always be criticised if he didn't contribute with goals, or people would say, "Oh, his first touch is very poor."
He got a lot of stick, didn't he?
He got too much stick. It was undeserved stick, I felt. And the Serie A and Conte have just made him better now, and he looks just. You compare him now. The fact we're comparing him to Kane and to Haaland and to Lewandowski probably says a lot about how good he's gotten in the last year or two.
Yeah.
So 75 million for Lukaku back, to solve our number 9 problems, I think would be the signing of the summer for sure.
I agree. And if we did end up getting Eden Hazard back as well, I'm just visualizing it now, just the attacking presence and the intensity of that as well. because I feel like you mentioned, Lukaku's game developed so much, obviously, from when we had him. Even when he was at West Brom, he wasn't the most prolific goal scorer, even at Everton. But when he did score, he scored a lot of goals. I'm sure he did score quite a bit for West Brom as well.
Mm.
So it'd be interesting if we can get him. I think the most realistic, and he is the most suited. And by that I mean, for the fee, I'd rather take a hit on a gamble, I suppose, on Lukaku rather than paying 150, 200 million on Harry Kane. Yes, we're going to get amazing goals out of him. He might be top goal scorer, but I'm sure there must be. I think Lukaku surely must be younger than Kane, if not maybe
Mm.
around a similar age. But just for the fee, the fee's
Mm.
the thing that sways it for me. I think you're going to get more for your money out of Lukaku than you would for Harry Kane in a
Yeah.
weird way. So
And also, since Costa's left, we haven't really had that bully striker that we were hoping for. Morata was a bit fragile. Same with Abraham. Higuain never really lived up to his potential at Chelsea. So I think Lukaku would. We've always looking for that number nine, that number nine, that number nine. I think he'll be that solution. Big striker. He's well built as well, which is
yeah,
perfect for the Premier League. Maybe that's why Van has struggled at times, but in that number nine position at least. But agree. It just makes sense for him to come back in the most realistic option for the fee that's available. And it's a known fact that Inter may need to sell now if they need to, recoup
yeah,
80 million. So Chelsea, should go into the negotiations knowing that Inter probably need to sell players, whether it's him or Lautaro Martinez, one of the two, but
yeah,
should play a part.
yeah. I'd have to agree. Um, I did want to talk about goalkeepers, which we've mentioned already, but just in the fact that there is talk of Kepa going out on loan as well, which would make room for another goalkeeper. Caballero, probably late 30s now, I think.
I think 39 or 40. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
so I was trying to be nice to him, but I think late 30s, close to 40. So you got to think maybe we might have him on the bench as a third option. But we do, if we load Kepa out, then there needs to be that competition for Mendy as well. I think that's one of the things that it struggles with. I think when he signed for us as well, there wasn't really competition for him as such. He just had the jersey and that was it. So I think when Mendy came in, it kind of gave Kepa the reason to actually want to be the best goalkeeper at the club. If we do loan out Kepa, we've got a goalkeeper that's 20 odd, who's leaving Roma, free transfer, I believe, as well. He's not extending his contract, so is he the solution to our problem?
Is this Donnarumma?
Yeah,
It's yeah. He's 22, I think. He's
yeah,
got
yeah,
over 200 appearances for AC Milan. He made his debut at 15 or 16. He's the first choice for the Italian national team. I think last summer when we were priced out by the price that Atletico were asking for Oblak, he was the logical option. I know I've mentioned a few times that it's a pain to deal with his agent in Raiola, and I actually feel sad for
oh
Gianluigi
yeah,
Donnarumma because you can tell he wants to play for AC Milan, his boyhood club in the Champions League, and Raiola's stopping him from doing that. Raiola's probably going to make him join Juventus or Inter Milan now, which is probably make him the most hated man in Italy and the most hated man in the red side of Milan. But for me, it makes sense to sign him on a free. Mendy's 29 now, nearly 30. You have to ask yourself the question: how many more years of Mendy do we have? I know goalkeepers can play until late 30s,
yeah,
but I think Mendy's a great keeper, and it'd be very harsh to sign someone to replace him so early on. But at the same time, I think there's room for improvement, and I think Donnarumma's an amazing goalkeeper. The fact, as I mentioned, he made his debut at 15, first choice for the Italian national team, and he's now probably the most wanted goalkeeper in Europe, considering the situation.
yeah.
I think we should go for it, honestly. And I think we've seen it a few times. It's a bit tricky, but sometimes having that competition, that healthy competition with goalkeepers, like we saw between Petr Cech and Courtois in Courtois'
Yeah, yeah,
first season,
yeah,
Petr Cech and even Bernd Leno at Arsenal at times. Then, this season, the De Gea and Henderson situation, slightly different maybe. But it could be one of those times, maybe start Donnarumma on the bench and then play Mendy and then slowly bring Donnarumma in. But I think it's just too hard to turn down the possibility to sign him on a free. If I'm honest.
And I think, as you mentioned around Oblak as well, he would have been target number one. But I think in Donnarumma, you get that same level of goalkeeper. Like you mentioned, his goalkeeping number one at Italian national team, which you think about all the brilliant goalkeepers that have come before him in Italy as well. That's a big statement to make at that age as well. So I think we've got no choice but to sign him. And I agree with you, it's very harsh on Mendy. But one of the things that we do well, do look at the future of the club as well. And for me, that would be a signing of the future. Not to say he doesn't play any part this season, well, next season coming up now and the season after. But I think 22. He's got another 10 years ahead of him plus, and he could make a name for himself somewhere. Why not be Chelsea? Is what I think as well. So it'll be interesting. It really will. I do think Kepa needs to go out on loan. Again, that'd be very harsh because I feel like under Tuchel he's played a lot. When he has played, done really well. But I think he needs that first team football. He needs to be playing week in, week out, and I think that's the only way he's going to better himself as a goalkeeper as well.
He's not in the Spanish national team for the Euros this summer, and I think the fact he's played a limited amount of football this season probably played a part. And I think in his head he's thinking, if I want to be among the three goalkeepers picked for my national team come the World Cup in Qatar, which is next year now.
Next year, yeah.
He probably thinks that a move is needed to get regular first team football, and I think Lazio was the name mentioned on loan. But I think regardless of what happens this summer, we're going to go in for a goalkeeper because I think Kepa will go out on loan potentially, and I think Caballero's contract might not get renewed. I think he only signed a 1-year extension last summer, so it's whether we go for a Donnarumma, and have that challenge between Donnarumma and Mendy, or if we go for just someone like a Jack Butland just to replace, play second fiddle to Edouard Mendy for another season or so.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one. I think that's the main kind of, it's just the option of, as I mentioned, just Donnarumma on a free is too good to turn down. But I think it's going to be ridiculous wages if it's Raiola, that kind of stepping in the way.
Signing on fee.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we'll take it. We'll take the hit. I'm sure Roman will hopefully gets a checkbook out. It's a long-term investment. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he might. For me, it makes sense to do that. So out of those that we mentioned, I'd take Donnarumma, Lukaku, Eden Hazard. I'd love to take Robert Lewandowski. I mean, it goes without saying. I don't even need to explain why, but I still think Lukaku is the best option. I really do. I think he's the. Lewandowski's going to get you the 40, 35, goals a season, whatever he's going to get you. But I just think long term, Lukaku for the money as well. Lukaku definitely. But those have been my three that I'll take.
I'd agree.
Realistically, I mean, obviously we'd love Haaland, we'd love him, but the fee they're going to be asking is going to be ridiculous as well. Rightfully so. And same with Harry Kane. We don't do big Spurs, which we mentioned on here before. I did put up a tweet early this week actually, which was quite interesting. 3 times there's only been 3 players that have gone from Chelsea to Spurs, so in the Premier League era. So it's not like we do business back and forth with Spurs. So I just can't see it happening with Harry Kane. And if Pochettino does go back to Spurs, I'd be 60-40 that he might actually stay at Spurs now if Pochettino does go back. It sounds like he's been promised things by leaving.
Yeah, it's very dependent on the managers, I feel. Whichever managers kind of, taking charge of the clubs in the summer, I think could lead to players wanting to stay, wanting to leave. So that kind of Zidane and Conte, leaving today. And wherever Conte goes as well, maybe Conte, should he go to Real Madrid, then maybe, I think Hazard really liked playing under Conte. He was very successful, at least under Conte. So maybe that may rejuvenate his time in the Spanish capital. But yeah, it's very dependent on, it seems to be this merry-go-round as well in Serie A with the managers. So it'll be interesting. I always say it's going to be a very interesting summer in terms of transfers, in terms of preseason, in terms of Euros, in terms of, those players that don't get selected at the Euro for their national teams but go to the training quite early and maybe get that game time with their managers. So yeah, really interesting.
And because I think Inzaghi's got the Inter Milan job now, hasn't he? I think he's agreed to take that on. So that'd be interesting. But I still think that same stance will come from the owners and the hierarchy, that they still need to sell players. So sure, I'd imagine Lukaku will be on that list of players that are going to be all are in the shop window. So it'd be interesting, like you say. I think once the managerial positions are sorted, they'll definitely look at what needs to be done. And I think, well, I say think, I'm hoping Lukaku is in the shop window. I think he'd benefit from. I think Werner and would benefit from playing with him as well. I think it might give that sort of attacking option a bit of a reshift, and it might help Werner as well.
I agree. We've seen Werner naturally just kind of switches to the wing at times, and then just ends up being that player that feeds the ball to their striker, whether it's Ziyech who comes in or Havertz. But yeah, the Havertz and Werner would benefit from a player like Lukaku, which I'm going to say is experience, seeing where he's played at and the level he's played at. But I'm just picturing the scenario next week: Hazard or Lukaku putting that tweet up, "I'm signing for the Champions of Europe." Should we win on Saturday, it'd be like a repeat of 2012 again. But I think those three players we mentioned, we didn't talk about Sancho. That's a number one potentially.
Yeah.
But any one of those 3 or 4 players, I think, will just will come in and slot in perfectly.
And we've also got Fernando Torres, who's apparently coming back as well. So
I saw his Instagram post.
He's got
win as a corner on Saturday.
Yeah, he's got unfinished business with us. So it'd be interesting. I think he's going to announce whatever this is tomorrow on Friday. So whenever this comes out tomorrow, we'll hopefully know whether it's just a sort of marketing campaign
I was going to say it's probably promotion for his gyms or coaching role or something like that.
Something, isn't it? So I can't imagine he's going to be playing at Coventry City or somewhere like that. So just before we wrap up, I just wanted to mention, obviously we haven't really spoken about the Euros, but I just wanted to talk about Tomori not making the provisional squad at all, which I think is probably the most craziest thing I've witnessed since COVID. I just can't believe, for a player who's led AC Milan to second in the Serie A and not even in the provisional squad. I'm not to say he's going to make the squad, but even as a thought, we've got Connor Cody in the team, Ben White's in the team. It just didn't sit right with me.
It's baffling. Yeah. I was trying to think of the possible reasons why maybe Southgate being like, I'd rather focus on Premier League players. Then there's a handful of Bundesliga players, Sancho and
Bellingham's in there.
Yeah, but Tomori's just been a rock, in that centre back, role for AC Milan. And those players that you listed, in my head, Tomori's, I'm going to be biased towards Chelsea because he is a Chelsea player still to this day, but he's a lot better than Ben White and Cody, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Tyrone Mings is in that squad as well.
Yeah. And he's capped by England already, Tomori was. Ben White's never played a game for us before, I think. So
it's strange. I think that the raving around Ben White, I think he's he was a brilliant season in the Championship, which I think he's just living off. I'm not saying he's a bad defender at all. He's a good defender, but is he better than Tomori?
No,
not a chance, not at all. And it just shocked me. It baffled me. So it's disappointing because I think he deserves to go. But like you mentioned, we've got a World Cup, in 12 months as well to look forward to. So, he's got another year, wherever he ends up, whether he does go
18 months if it's the winter.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. I didn't even think. I forgot it's in Qatar, isn't it? So, if he does go to AC Milan, hopefully that doesn't stop the fact that he's over there I don't think Southgate will be in charge for the World Cup, if I'm honest. So it doesn't really matter. I think he'll miss this Euro. So, but that's another story for another day. So yeah, Champions League final Saturday. Theo's shaking his head for those who are watching and listening on the podcast. I'm hoping that's a shake of the head because Sterling's just missed a sitter in his head and it's just gone sky high over the bar.
Picturing all the different scenarios and my head's just going to explode.
Yeah. So we've gave our predictions. Obviously, we want to be doing this podcast in a few days' time with the same sort of enjoyment that we did when we realised we were in the final of the Champions League as well. So just let them know, Theo, where they can find you, and obviously all the work you do on Instagram and Twitter as well.
Yeah, so make sure you follow me on Twitter at Seski Time. So Seski, like the Fabregas way of spelling it, and then time. And also make sure to follow our Instagram page, From the Shed End, but underscore between all the words of that. I've been writing a few articles, as I mentioned, for the Champions League Journal. So if you want to give those a read, they're being published on our Twitter page, at From the Shed End as well. So we'd really appreciate some feedback and to let me know what you guys think of them.
Yeah, and you can find me on at t._producer on Twitter. And as always, interact with us. Let us know what your thoughts are during our discussions or afterwards as well. We appreciate all the feedback and the interaction that we get already. So from myself and Theo, thanks for listening. And this has been episode 12 of From the Shed End podcast.